So I went and picked up one of these transmission coolers, 45 bucks I think. So I think there was some kind of discount, I don't know what it was. But anyway, this is supposed to work with that size transmission I have and everything, so we'll see what happens with this. Okay YouTube, so since the transfer case, which is, you know, back here from the red there back, since the transfer case for this four-wheel drive is an odd shape, it's oblong and there's really no flat surfaces on it, it's a little tough to put on the transmission jack. In fact, the transmission jack, it's okay to hold this, like right now I have some weight against there, so that's not a problem to hold it there, but it couldn't really put the transfer case up. If you do use the transmission jack, you got to take these arms off of here because the transfer case is above the frame here at a point where these little things on the jack here don't help you. So anyway, what I did was I bench pressed that thing up in there. I don't think it's more than about 125, but anyway, you turn it sideways with the wide part, which is over here. Turn it sideways so you can get it up there, and then once you get it up, you turn it around, and you want to really quick try and get the coupling together over the spline that's inside the back of the transmission and the transfer case shaft that runs through, because that'll help to hold it a little bit. I mean, you got to still keep pressure on it, but it'll hold it enough to get the jack back under it, which is what I did here. And then what I did was I lined up the bolts because of the way this transfer case works. It actually worked pretty nice, because when you put the block of wood underneath this side of the transfer case, it actually rotates the case for you once the spline is on. So that rotation then allowed me to put the bolts in. So I just got, what I did was before I ever put it up there, I put the gasket maker on it. Now I'm from the old school, so I don't really trust this gasket maker, but I'm using it anyway, and hopefully it'll work. I know a lot of guys use it, but I could have made a gasket for it, I just didn't feel like doing it. So I put the gasket maker on it, and what it said was they want you to leave it sit for an hour before you tighten up. So I'm going to leave it sit for about an hour there. I made sure that the gasket maker was on both pieces all the way around the thin layer. It only calls for a 1/16, and I didn't put much more than that on it. But when you tighten that up, because there's bolts on a good circular pattern around there, it'll tighten that up. I'm pretty sure tight enough that it won't leak or anything. I don't know how much oil goes in there anyway, but it should be good. When you're putting it up, you want to be careful. This breather here, can't really see it in the camera, but this breather right here, you want to be careful you don't bend or break that off, because it's, you know, it is only a little piece of pipe. It's pretty tough, it seems, but at the same time, same thing, there's a switch on the top there to tell you that you're in four-wheel drive, and the same switch is what tells the front axle here to shift for you into four-wheel drive, you know, or whatever it does. Yeah, so got to make sure you don't break or bend that thing. I just replaced that about 2 years ago, actually, because it wasn't telling me it was in four-wheel drive. So I'm going to leave it sit for an hour, then I'll put the linkage on there and the linkage on the transmission. I'm just going to leave everything sit here because it's sort of, you know, haphazard just sitting on the jack here. So I'm going to let it go for an hour, and then I'll come back to it. I got some other things I can do. But for the most part, it's coming together nice. I've had no problems, and I like that. I have, yeah, that's good there. Yeah, so we should be alright, and then I got to hook up that little cooler that I bought for the transmission. Which, like I was saying before, I got to move this pile of wood to be able to get in front of the truck. Or push the truck halfway outside, which I don't really relish doing. It's snowing again. John. But we're looking good. So we put the drive shafts on. I got to replace the one propeller, or the one universal joint, and then we should be in good shape. Okay, so we got the transfer case bolted in there good. And guys, just a little tip. there's a wiring harness that goes on the transfer case. There's wires back here near the tail shaft. There's one on top of the transfer case, and then you have some going to the transmission. You won't goof them up unless you're really not watching what you're doing, because they're all different shapes and stuff. But what I'm getting at here is when you go to put wiring around anything, if there's no brackets, like this is obviously, I put this in here because it's got a Phillips head in it. A factory wouldn't do that, but I put a bracket on here when I rebuilt the truck once before. So you want to tie these wires up, and I use those nylon cable things so that if anything does move, it's not going to be vibrating on something that it would short out or screw something up. Same thing like these fuel lines. The original fuel lines had like a sheathed metal case on them and went through a bracket. Well, I didn't put these rubber through the bracket because I don't trust that vibrating in there. But what I did do was tie this around to it, and that'll hold that good. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, if it vibrates, that's one thing, but it ain't going to wear a hole in it. So that's just a little tip as well. Okay, so now we have the shift linkage in here, and the truck is in park, so you can see which direction park is. Apparently it's this way on the transmission. I don't need to know that, you know, for positive right now, because first of all, this linkage, I didn't adjust it anyway when I took it apart. Sometimes when you take linkage apart, where's it at here? You can see it up there, up in, I can't even see this stupid screen, but anyway, up in there, there's a rod with a round thing on it. That's where you adjust this linkage, and since I didn't adjust it, all I did was put it back together. Now sometimes, in order to take linkage off of certain things, you have to unadjust it. In other words, you have to tamper with the adjustment. Since I didn't tamper with the adjustment, I just pulled this out of the frame and off the transmission here. There should be no reason why this doesn't work just as good as it did before. So we're good with that. Alright, so now we can go ahead and I put the linkage for the transfer case on too. I don't know if I had said that before. So now we're going to put this drive shaft on here that goes to the front end. This joint that takes that puts the power to the front end, this universal joint here and this connection, there's just 4 bolts in here, and what it is it's a flat flange going straight against another flat flange. There's a little bit of a indentation in it to lock it together because it doesn't vibrate or move around the bolt holes. So it's sort of like putting a tire onto a wheel, or I mean a wheel onto a hub, because it has like a flange to center it, and that's what this thing has in it. What you want to do though is you want to, once you take this piece and you push it against when you take this drive shaft end and you push this in there, you want to turn it and make sure you get all the bolts started before you tighten it. Okay? And then at this end here, let me bring the light over here. At this end here, what you want to do is, like you can see that there was, from changing motor oil, when you take the filter out, it drops right down onto the thing here, to the universal joint. At least it keeps it greased. Anyway, what you want to do is wipe these off before you put them up there. They're pretty dirty. And make sure there's no grit in there, because they won't go in all the way if there's grit in there. And you can feel with your finger if it's smooth. If it's not smooth to the touch, then wipe it out again. So then putting these joints together, because the end of this drive shaft here pushes in, so just watch this, you see it comes in and out. That's what gives you the ability to put this on here without any headaches. So you just push it in all the way, push this that way, turn it so that it's going to fit the universal joint there. I don't know if you can see it or not. I need two hands with this. And then pull it into place. You want to make sure you get it seated right. And you should be able to seat it by hand like that. You shouldn't have to pry it or anything. It's pretty much a machine fit. So then on top of that is where these clamps go. These clamps. I don't know where. Man, it's just tight under here. Hold on. Okay, so the clamp like that goes one on each side, one on this side, one on the other side. And what you want to do is you can snug these up a little bit on each side and then turn it, but the better thing to do would be to get the clamp on, make sure you're against and fit nice. Make sure that whatever you see here, like it's inset, make sure that this one's inset. Okay, on a Chevy they're usually all the same, and this way here you know what that you're sitting in the right place. Not that this is out here and you force it into place with the clamp. You don't want to force it. It should go by hand. Okay, so we've got the main drive shaft on as well. The only thing we need to do now is weld this together and put the cooler on. So right down in there where my thumb is pointing, that's the new transmission cooler. All it was a matter of taking the old one out and putting the new one in, replacing the hoses, because I had it in a good spot. So when I rebuilt the frame to the truck, originally the radiator cooler, or the transmission cooler, was against the radiator. I didn't want that. I wanted it separate so I don't have to take the cooler out when I take the radiator out. So I built that little thin piece of metal you see there where my finger's pointing is a frame that I built that the transmission cooler fits into. So the new one also fit into this one. The only difference was that the hoses came up out of the top of it rather than the side, but it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so then we reconnected the throttle body parts over here. Where the heck are they? I think I'm pointing at it. Down in there from the transmission. Put oil in it. It holds 5 quarts, I believe. I put 4 in just to be safe in case there's some in there already. And it shows over full at the moment, but there's none in the hoses for the radiator cooler. So I'm going to fix the exhaust pipe and then I can start it. So guys, what I want to do with the pipe underneath there, instead of welding it back together and then having to cut it again if something's wrong, this is a 2 1/4 inch connector. The outside diameter of that pipe's 2 1/4. But here's the nice thing here. I didn't have to buy this, and I'm going to share something with you. Besides having a wide selection of nuts and bolts, okay, I got a bunch of, and I'm only showing this so the young guys, you know, can get their act together and save some stuff up. But check this out. I'm showing you my secret stash. This is on top of one of my shelves in the garage. I've got an extra gas tank for my tractor. I got rear end parts. I've got all kind of stuff here to fit all of my different trucks. They're all the same Chevy. Most of the parts fit. Lawnmower parts, radiator hoses, brake lines. I even got grass or wildflower seeds. What's this? Steering pump, pulley, and there's God knows what in here. But you know what? Some of this stuff, I'm not a pack rat, so don't think I am, because I'm not. Rotors for the car. What I do is I save whatever I can use. I do not save anything else. I throw everything else away. There's a fuel pump in there. What's that? Pulse something or other. Pulse. Oh, that's a pulse board for the windshield wipers. The manual for the Craftsman mower, because if you have Craftsman mowers, you know you break one as soon as you hit a rock. Extra speedometer cable for the truck, and also an extra winch for the snow plow. So, you know, after years and years of doing this stuff, you accumulate things. But it's nice when you go under there and you measure the pipe. This is the caliper set at that, and you come back out and you find that you have the exact same thing. That's the nice part about saving stuff. Otherwise, when I throw stuff away, I always say to my wife, "Where'd that go? Did you do anything with that?" I usually blame her. Okay, YouTube. Everything is hooked up except for the air cleaner. Okay, I'm going to leave the air cleaner off for a couple minutes until it's hard for me to put it on when I'm up on this lift that I have here. So I'm going to start the truck up. You're going to hear what it sounds like. Hopefully there's no whining sound of any kind. And I'm going to open my garage door. So, cross your fingers. Come on, you. And it's snowing. Yay. Well, guys, it looks like those Texas boys might be okay. And the good thing about it is it jumped right in reverse, jumped right into drive. I'm going to leave it running and idle there a little bit, and I want to check the transmission fluid. Because it was supposed to get 5 quarts, I only put 4 in. I'm going to let it do a little bit of pumping with no load, and then I'll check the oil in a minute or two. Yeehaw! Oh yeah! Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Ooh. I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, so I just took the dipstick out. You can see it laying, I don't know where my finger's pointing. I think that's the top of it right there. So I got to add 1 more quart of transmission fluid, and then I'm going to take it for a ride. They say they'd like to see the truck, if it's on a lift, run in reverse for a while. So I got a lot of roads. I'll just back up for a mile. Well, guys, I filled the transmission up, and as I was filling it, lucky I didn't take it anywhere because I forgot that I didn't put any oil in the transfer case. Oh, yoy. What a mistake that would have been. So I'm going to have to use a suction thing I have to put that in. So I'm going to pull it back up on the ramps here and fill the transfer case. But I'm just so happy that it goes in reverse. So it should be alright, but we got to fill it up. Alright guys, since I had to climb back underneath here, I just want to show you what now that's a temporary fix. Unless it stays together, I'll let it go. But there's 2 clamps on there with a small piece of pipe, and the gap in there is only 1/8 of an inch. I measured on both sides of the pipe, put a mark, and slid that piece on there, and you can, when I started the truck up, you didn't hear nothing. So that's a temporary, or if it wants to stay there, I'll let it permanent. But here's the thing that I want to show you next, and this is the transfer case. Now, on this transfer case, you have 2 big nuts here. One here. Let me see if I can back up. There we go. One here, and one here. This is a new process transfer case. I don't know the model number of it offhand. But anyway, you fill this the same way you would fill the standard transmission. You take the top nut off and you fill it with Dexron 3 until no more oil goes in it. Okay? That's how you know it's full. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, YouTube. I'm changing the motor oil on the truck, and the transmission worked perfectly so far. So hopefully that'll be good. So thanks for watching. Bye. So at the end of the day, I'm beat.